Hey, it's Chuck.
We got a black trouble! Hey man, this guy's a natural athlete and a ball hawk. Newest member of BIA, Leroy Broca!
Hey, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the man above, because without him, none of this would be possible. I'd like to thank my boys in the DB room, BIA, Coach G, Coach Walt. Go Bucks.
Definitely, we can be one of the most elite defenses to ever play in this game, so.
Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. Welcome into Juckonbucks on a Thursday. Appreciate y'all so much. And that was our guy, Leroy Roker, getting his black stripe removed. Congrats to Leroy. And it is Thursday. It is the last week of camp. Next week, the final week of practice, but it's a game prep week. So things change drastically all around the country. And our Buckeyes have now had practices the last few days in the evening because of classes, because they do, in fact, go to class. Contrary to what some folks believe, there are some athletes that are really students and want a degree. On Coach Jim Tressel's new podcast, The Team, and what a show that is. I watched that quite a bit. I think I've seen every episode. It's just so delightful to listen to him talk. And he's giving the interview, but he talks plenty. I sometimes wish it was just somebody interviewing him every episode about a different topic. That would be great. But we discussed on here on the show when he interviewed Marcus Freeman, played a couple clips of that interview. And I loved Marcus Freeman when he was a Buckeye. Rooted for him really hard when he was at Cincinnati with Coach Fickell. I rooted for him to get the head coach job at Notre Dame. He got that job, and I generally root for him when they're playing somebody that, after they've lost a few games and they're out of it. I generally root for them for him, just like I root for Wisconsin when they're playing an inconsequential game to us because I root for Fick, just like I rooted for the Titans when Vrabel was there. You know what I mean? So it's just something I do. Support Buckeyes. Once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye. And not just me, but a whole lot of people were very irritated in 2021 when Marcus Freeman got the job at Notre Dame, and he penned a letter to the Notre Dame Players Tribune, and he included the following line. I visited the university for the first time when I was 16 years old, and I was recruited to play here. I had a choice to make, and in the end, it came down to Ohio State and Notre Dame. I chose Ohio State. A year ago, you might have heard I was considering a couple of jobs in coaching. We took a trip down to Louisiana and then to South Bend. When we got back home, it was another tough decision, and I can't tell you exactly what it was that told us to come to Notre Dame, but it was something special. We all know there's something about Notre Dame, and we all know it's something special. Now, Marcus could have stopped right there, but he didn't. He added this line at the end. And I just thank God that I didn't make the wrong decision twice. Totally unnecessary, even if you feel that way, to take a shot at your alma mater, your home state, full of people who have supported you all your career. I found it tasteless, classless, and I couldn't, and it just really bothered me, right? It bothered a lot of people. And my irritation kind of subsided with him after that episode with Coach Tressel. I sit and talk behind a microphone for like 5 hours a week, right? I stick my foot in my mouth probably 3 times throughout that week. So I understand now more than ever that sometimes you get caught up in the moment and you say things that you would like to have back. And Marcus Freeman wanted to have that back.
Before we go open up for questions, just, my feelings on Ohio State. And I want to make sure to be very clear that, the relationships, the time that I spend in Columbus have impacted me and had relationships that I've built that will be with me for the rest of my life. And so I'm very passionate about being a head coach here, but in no ways do I want to diminish my time in Columbus and the impact that time has made on me. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that.
So kind of an I'm sorry, but didn't take it back, right? Didn't take back what he said. Anyway, whatever. I got over it. I was good with it. I was back on good terms in my mind with Marcus. Well, that lasted all of, I don't know, that episode came out about a month ago until this week when Marcus made another statement and took another little snotty shot at Ohio State. And at this point, I'm done. From CBS. To make his point, Freeman brought up the two most significant football stops in his career before coming to Notre Dame in 2021. At Ohio State, Freeman played defensive back for Jim Tressel, eventually becoming a fifth-round NFL draft choice with the Chicago Bears. At Cincinnati, he earned a reputation as one of the nation's best defensive coordinators. Quote, you don't go to class at places like that, Freeman said. Okay, you take some online classes, show up to your appointments. At Notre Dame, you're forced to go to class every day. So I'm out. I'm totally out. That's a dude that played at Ohio State, coached at Ohio State, from Ohio. His colors have been shown. I'm done with him. Bobby Carpenter had this to say. Love my man Marcus Freeman, but the Ohio State shade has got to stop. I was a business econ major and went to class 15 years ago. J.K. Dobbins was a business major, and I would see him every Monday and Wednesday walking out of the business school when I taught finance. Some people defend Marcus by saying this is his team now. He's got to show that he's loyal to them. And I get it. Particularly the Players Club letter was in 2021. He was about to take his team to play Ohio State 2 years in a row at that point. So he definitely probably, thought maybe some people might think he had dual loyalties and wanted to make sure they knew he was on their side. You can do that without taking a shot at your alma mater. Everybody that coaches has an alma mater, and maybe not all as prestigious as Notre Dame. So, I can understand where he's coming from, that he may want to make that clear to them, but he's taken it way too far, in my opinion, and gone out of his way now a second time to take a shot after his apology.
We don't do negative recruiting. I love my time at Ohio State and wouldn't be here for if I didn't spend that time there. But, the reality is that we believe that Notre Dame offers you something that nowhere else in the country can give you. And that's the opportunity to win a national championship, to be developed, to be an NFL draft pick, and to join a network from this degree that you can earn from this place that will set you up for the rest of your life.
We don't do negative recruiting. Proceeds to do negative recruiting. You can certainly do all three of those things at Ohio State as well, including the network that got him into coaching to be able to be like the youngest coach in Notre Dame history. Certainly helped him, that network. As far as the network, the degree network, it's something I say to every one of these guys that I've had on the show that chooses Ohio State, and anybody around the university who comes through the university, or, like we all guys that like us that follow the program, we know that so many of these guys, former football players at Ohio State, that come out and go into the business world, no matter what field they go into, they are, they get plum jobs, right? If they're willing to work and they want to work, people want them. And we see it all over the place. They want to go into real estate or finance, whatever they want to do. We take care of those guys better than anybody. And that's kind of what he's implying by the degree, the network from the degree. Readily apparent at Ohio State that is something huge. And we all talk about it. It's something great that we can really hang our hat on. It doesn't matter if you were a starter. It doesn't matter what. If you pick Ohio State and you come to Ohio State, you're going to be taken care of if you're putting in the work. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it always has been. And he knows that. You know what I mean? Like, he knows that better than anybody. So, sayonara. I'm done with him. He goes down with his Fighting Irish to take on Texas A&M week 1. And they are a 2.5-point underdog at this point. I have always rooted for Notre Dame against the SEC. Always. Oh, geez. Did you hear what Manti Te'o said about that national championship game last week? He said that they were in the tunnel getting ready to come out, and he was all pumped up with his guys. They were number 1 team, and he saw DJ Fluker and one of the other linemen from Alabama walk out in their big bellies, and DJ was running by, and he went, woo, woo. And he said he just looked back and he looked at his guys and he said all he could see was their eyes. And he said, I knew it was going to be a long night, but to my guys' credit, they didn't flinch, but those Bama boys were just different. And boy, were they ever. Looking at the sidelines, I had a view looking down both sidelines. It was like maybe 12 of the Notre Dame players looked like they could have played on Alabama's team. And aside from that, it looked like an NFL team and a college team. It was a real eye opener for me at that point in time. I was still, I think, at that point, very much a denier of the talent gap that a team like Alabama had and a team like Notre Dame had at that time, until I saw that. And I remember getting home, talking to a couple of my uncles, and one of them was telling me, it was just the starters were the same. It was just that, the bench. Absolutely not. No, that wasn't the case. And they said that on the telecast. That was not the case. That was two very, very different teams. And it really cemented to me the importance of, at the time, Urban's recruiting and his new style. And, we need to embrace this and we need to roll hard, or else we're going to look exactly like that Notre Dame team the next time we match up against a team like that. But the point is, go Aggies. Where's those corny yell men? These are our guys for next Saturday. We are 2 days away from our first college football Saturday. 2 days away. The most exciting game of the day is going to be Georgia Tech and Florida State. I mean, we think there could be one that ends up being more exciting, but that's the headliner of the day. Florida State, Georgia Tech from Ireland. Florida State is they were a 13.5 point favorite. That's actually been bet down to 10.5. So let's hope that we get a close game out of that one. And we're going to come on here and do a post-game live show that really is not going to have a ton to do with Florida State and Georgia Tech. I'm just excited. Football will be going on. I'm going to want to talk to you guys. We'll be officially 1 week away from our first Buckeyes game. And maybe a little primer from the Juckonbucks post-game show, which we are going to do every Saturday. I got a pile of my podcast buddies lined up to do the show throughout the year, as well as some people, different personalities and folks throughout there. I got a couple of the guys, class of 2025, Eli Lee, Isaiah West. They're going to be coming on every now and again. You guys can ask them some questions and talk about, they're going to talk about their future teammates. Dan Sanchez, Devin Sanchez's dad. This dude loves football. He's going to, obviously be into the team. So he'll join us to talk some Buckeye football. Dylan Davis is going to be checking in with us after the press conferences from the stadium. Really looking forward to this. This is why I started the show originally, to do a Buckeye post-game show. So hope you guys can join me for that. I am pumped. And last night, our guys from Columbus Apparel Company came up from Columbus all the way up to Juck Studios, Akron, to show me some cool new stuff. You guys are going to want to check these guys out. They're almost done with the stuff that they got ready for me. If you are a member, a YouTube member, I got shirts for you guys. I'm going to need your addresses. You'll need to email me at juckonbucks@gmail.com. We'll talk about that in our next member video. But if you guys do any printing of shirts, banners, posters, whatever, any kind of printing you can think of, these guys do it. They're excellent. They care about their work. I've been in a business for the last 25 years that involves a lot of printing of shirts for uniforms and such for people. Gone through 100 companies, never dealt with somebody so easy to deal with. These people are great. Their prices are going to be great when you use the promo code JUCK25 and get 25% off, which turns out to be quite a bit of money when you're talking about a t-shirt or custom printed. So do check them out, ColumbusApparelCompany.com. So practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was later in the day because of class. And we got late interviews. We got some media access on Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, we got to hear from Matt Guerrieri in the safeties. I want to talk about some of that, as well as the position group with probably the most question marks now for me at this point, and that's tight end. So Keenan Bailey and the tight ends, they talked to the media, Matt Guerrieri and the safeties on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Larry Johnson and the defensive line. Keenan Bailey's interview, this is a guy that I'm just not sure 100% how, I don't know. I think maybe I have more question marks about tight end because I got more question marks about him than anybody else. I know that they love him in the building. He's a really energetic guy. He does a ton for, the organization, and that's great. He's new, right? He's new to being a tight end coach. He's not a tight end by trade. So there's some questions there. But in his interview, he didn't really have many answers as far as what he's planning on doing with the rotation. A whole lot of we'll see. And he definitely wanted to convey the message of toughness. Tough was the word of the day for all the tight ends. In fact, it's probably their mantra in the room. And I'm okay with that because they're not tremendously skilled. So we definitely would like them to be something. And tough is it. You can be tough. Toughness is a mindset. Toughness is hustle, playing hard, blocking hard. That's an effort thing. And, if you can't be the most skilled or the best group on the team, I'd certainly like you to try to be the toughest. And when you got guys like Bennett Christian, who said he was trying to run through people's faces, Patrick Gerd, who's priding himself on blocking, Will Kazmarek, also a big dude and an excellent blocker, G. Scott, one of the leaders of the team, who is somebody who's holding everybody accountable, and Jelani, who's the mismatch, the super athlete of the group. You got a pretty tough group. So I do have some questions, but I think there's definitely a piece for every role. There's just not that one guy who's kind of that well-rounded guy who can do everything well. And I'm really hoping that Jelani can step up his consistency, and he talked about that.
We need everybody to be on all 10. Everybody know their assignment, everybody doing their assignment. So I feel like every day I work on being consistent, just knowing what I got to do, how I got to do it, why I got to do it.
And consistency is what Ryan Day has said he needs to see from him. He said, you guys see, all the good plays, but you miss a couple of bad ones. A couple of bad ones ruin a whole play, kill a drive. So I get what he's saying, but man, do we need that guy. By the middle of the season, he's got to be ready. When we go on that stretch run, he's a mismatch that they need. They absolutely need that mismatch. It is just vital to get that red zone threat down there. He is so tough to defend. So he also talked about blocking.
I've gotten bigger, so it's gotten easier. The blocking part has definitely came into play when I'm blocking bigger guys. I'm more efficient, more consistent, as they would say, on blocking. So I feel like I've gotten better.
So there were some folks that cover the team that had made some comments after Ryan Day's original comments about him 2 weeks ago. Said something like they can see what Ryan Day's saying in between reps. He doesn't seem quite as engaged as the older guys. And some folks took that to mean that maybe he was kind of clowning around or goofing off. And you can see his personality is fun. And he's pretty, it seems everybody really seems to like him. I remember watching a press conference, Chip Kelly in the middle of the press conference, like, hey, Jelani, when he was walking by. He's like, love that guy. And he certainly seems like it. That seems like a really good dude. So halfway through the season, got to get him ready. And I do like the toughness message out of that room. But Keenan Bailey, one thing I don't doubt anymore is his recruiting. I am incredibly happy with Nate Roberts, his number one target, really wanted him, went out and got him. I think he is criminally underrated, as is Brody Lennon, who he also went out and got, that seemed like kind of the throw-in for the class, but absolutely was not. Brody Lennon now actually ranked higher than Nate Roberts in the On3 rankings and was clocked at 21.3 miles per hour, the same speed as Bo Jackson. Now, we've definitely got a difference from people's software of, what that actually means. When we heard that Will runs 22 miles an hour, that kind of equates, I saw somebody, I think Urban said it, that equates to like under a 4.5. These numbers are silly. Like the point is, if you are all on the same system, so Ohio State's all on the same system, and then you can judge it from one player to the next being all on the same system. But like when we say Bo Jackson runs 21.3 on that real analytics that I showed, as does Brody Lennon. So they run the same on that measurement there. Do I think that Bo Jackson is slower than Will Howard? Do you guys? I don't think so. I'd be stunned. I just keep hearing this, Will Howard runs 22. I mean, like, I know I took that like in the context of he's faster than the other quarterbacks because he said they all ran over 20. I don't think they all run over 20 miles an hour as far as like the people that I've seen run 20 on most of these things. I think that on Ohio State's system, they're running 20. I would just be stunned if they all actually ran over 20 miles an hour compared to like the other guys I've seen over the course of the last 4 years or 5 years since this technology's kind of been prevalent. If they all run over 20 miles an hour, that would be pretty amazing to me. But on Ohio State's system, Will clearly the fastest. When Bo Jackson comes in, I think like when he's on that system, he's going to run way faster than 21.3, which is what that real analytics has him clocked at. My point is, Brody Lennon as fast as Bo Jackson on the real analytics, and I'm happy with Keenan Bailey's recruiting class. As we go into the next recruiting cycle, he is big on Caden Prothrow, who's a big-time tight end, and there's a good relationship going there. Has not offered the best tight end out of Ohio yet, who is going to be a top 5 tight end in the country, which is kind of strange to me. But we can talk about that some other time. The point is, did really, really well in the class of 25, so pretty excited about those guys. Caleb Downs pretty much stole the show for the safeties, and what Matt Guerrieri had to say about Caleb Downs was something. Have a listen to Matt.
Level in the SEC like he did and be on big stages. So I think there's an expectation of himself of, hey, I've done this before and I can do this again at an even higher level. So yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think that's helped him, and he and I, one of the projects that we did initially was to watch every single snap that he took from a year ago. So we go game by game, and pretty special. I mean, though, I'll tell you guys this: the screen comes up, and you've got overlays on there. Normally, defensive calls and that kind of stuff. Obviously, I don't have their calls and things like that. Right? So all we'd have is down and distance, time, and score. The play would come up. He could tell me the defensive call and what happened on the play before the film even started. That's from over a year ago. I mean, that's pretty special when you start saying, okay, what's the mental makeup of this young man.
That's just incredible. This guy he's got gifts, right? He's got God-given gifts, and it seems like he works harder than everybody else as well. When you add that kind of professionalism at such a young age with that kind of work ethic, that's when you get a guy who leads Alabama in tackles as a freshman from the safety position. He's just ridiculous. Here's what his counterpart, Lathan Ransom, had to say about him.
I mean, I feel like I said, just being able to compete with him, and like you said, he's a dude that comes in here, learned our defense quick like a sponge, and just he runs like a professional. So being able to be around him and just compete in everything we do, I think that's really what I've been able to pick up. Is just compete, and we're both constantly competing with each other.
So Ryan Day discussed early on in spring about potentially using potentially using Caleb Downs at running back. And that really came out of nowhere. And we were all kind of taken aback by it. And then he further said that he had discussed it with him during the recruiting process early, and then again during the re-recruitment when he was in the transfer portal. And it kind of seemed like obviously Ryan Day doesn't want to do this. Ryan Day's got amazing running backs. We know that those running backs don't want to share more carries with anybody, especially somebody who's not working their butt off in their room. It's almost like a slap in the face, really, if you're in that room and you got somebody coming from another position to take your carries. James Peoples wouldn't like it. Nobody would like it. But they asked Caleb Downs about his comments, Ryan Day's comments. What did he take it seriously?
I definitely take that serious. I mean, I feel like I'm an elite player with the ball in my hands. So, I mean, I would never say I would never not believe in myself to do something. So I definitely believe that's on the table, but I'm just taking it day by day.
Have you had any reps so far with that, Caleb?
When's the last time you had a rep?
At running back, let's say the end of the summer.
What would you like that to look like if you got to pick? How much would you play on?
I wouldn't say like every play or anything. I would say if I played on offense, it would like maybe max 10 snaps a game. So.
I mean, there's a kid out in Colorado right now doing it. So
I know.
like,
that's my friend Travis, yeah.
So, like, I don't know. Have you talked with him about what it's like to do? And maybe that's not even a real thing for this year, but just the idea of having to play both ways.
I mean, I have an idea from it just because of high school. I know it would be accelerated just because it's college and everything and everybody's better. But, I mean, I have an idea of it just because of high school. I played a lot of plays every play. So I know, like, what it would take and everything like that. But Travis is doing that at an elite level. And I don't think anybody's really done that in a while like him. So I commend him for that. I know how hard it is for him, and he's in elite shape to do it.
And I know you had conversations with.
This really has Ryan Day in a bit of a spot here, I think. He clearly told him that he could do this in the recruitment. He doesn't want to do this, right? Jim Knowles is concerned about depth at safety. He's the best player on the team. You've got guys at the position that he wants to go take some carries from. This is just not in the best interest of the team. But Caleb, you heard him there. He's serious about it and he wants it. He's talking about maybe 10 snaps a game. That's crazy. It wouldn't be crazy if you had more depth at safety and you had running backs who, weren't so hot. But when Ryan Day is hearing these comments, the way he said that, absolutely, I take it seriously. It's just like he's probably going, oh, shit, not again. But you could pacify him, right? Letting him return some punts. But they haven't done that, which is interesting. Why wouldn't you just pacify him and let him return some punts? He wants the ball in his hand, man. And when a guy comes in and he's working like that, and everybody's looking at him like setting a standard for everybody else, you want to reward him. You also want to keep your word when you recruited him. So let him return a couple punts. That would be what I would do. Because you certainly don't want him in the backfield, and you definitely don't want him taking carries away from Trey and Quinshawn or even Peoples. And it's just like, you're going to have to give him something at some point. He clearly wants it, and he definitely is going to earn it. So then he was asked about the talent, and I hate this question. The talent on this team versus a top-tier SEC team. And Caleb answered it probably the proper way.
Above or right at the same level, I would say. But it really doesn't matter about the talent level. We have to go out and play every game the same and be a disciplined team because that's what it takes to win. So, I mean, we could play Akron the first game. If they come out and have a better game plan and they're more disciplined, then it's going to be a game. It doesn't really matter about how much talent either team has. So I feel like we got to go out and be a disciplined team and play every game and every.
I could tell whoever asked that question, if they really want to find out, all they really need to do is go look at recruiting rankings for Ohio State versus the top tier SEC teams and NFL draft picks. And you can pretty much get the idea of what the talent is like. And you don't really need Caleb Downs' opinion on it. But, just the lionization of the SEC, even from folks inside the Woody covering the team. And here are the stats. Most active NFL players: Alabama 77, Ohio State 66, LSU 65, Michigan 63. That's 2 Big Ten teams, 2 SEC teams in the top 4. By the way, then you got Georgia and Notre Dame and Penn State. So actually, what's that? That is 4 out of the first 7 are in the Big Ten, not the Big Ten, but in the North. And then Washington after them. That's 5 of the top 8 are Northern teams. Man, that's something. 5 of the top 8. Would you have guessed that? I never would have guessed that. I've even pulled that list up before and never realized that 5 of the top 8 were Northern teams in producing NFL players. Really something. Lathan Ransom asked about the comments that Ryan Day made about how much he loves being around Lathan.
It means a lot to me, man. I think I just try to be myself, always have a smile on my face, joke around, have fun with everyone, and I I just appreciate being here, man. Every day to me is a blessing because I've had it taken away before. So every day I'm on the field, every day I'm around my brothers, man. I enjoy the moment.
After Caleb and Lathan Ransom, we also heard from Malik Hartford, second-year Ohio boy, highly rated prospect, asked what he thought was changed during his second year for him.
Definitely a lot bigger, a lot stronger. The game's coming a lot slower as well, so I just feel like I'm playing faster out there.
And he seems really young. So a freshman last year, he played quite a bit. And this year, you got Jaden Bonsu, who was kind of the star safety of the spring. Jalen McClain, the star safety of fall camp. So a couple safeties really showing out. We did not get to hear from them. And we didn't get to hear from Keenan Nelson, the transfer from South Carolina. And it doesn't look like he's going to be involved in the plans too much this year. But all right, on to the big guys. Larry Johnson said that he feels comfortable playing 5 defensive ends right now, 6 defensive tackles. The 5 defensive ends, JT, Jack, Kenyatta, Caden Curry, and Mitchell Melton, who I think might end up playing more than Caden Curry and Kenyatta. I just got a feeling the way they're reacting to Mitchell Melton, we're about to see something. Mitchell Melton not ever played more than 13 snaps in a single game due to injuries and such, but everything we've heard is he is incredibly tough to block. We know he's a dog. When asked if there might be a 6th defensive end, he said either Joshua Mickens or Edric Houston. Joshua Mickens, who's really undersized, has added 30 pounds and come out of nowhere, Larry Johnson said, to have a really good camp. So that's excellent news. And 6 defensive tackles. He said that the bar is higher this year. He didn't feel he had enough guys last year setting that high bar, but feels like they have a few doing it this year.
What tyleik and Ty did last season in the middle, if you go back and watch the videotape, those guys did a great job of managing the middle. They really played really well the inside. And so what you want to get out of that guy, you want to get pass rushes too. So you don't want to take those guys off the field. Like, tyleik can rush the passer, and Ty, we're going to get Ty to rush the passer also. So that's the thing I think is important. You can find a guy who can rush the passer, play the run, then you got a bonus on third down. You can leave that big guy in the game to rush the passer.
We've talked about the sack numbers last year, middle of the pack nationals, which I know not great. How much a priority is it? But you also want to do it within the context of your defense. The goal isn't just sacks.
Yeah, we're not chasing sacks. We just chase an opportunity to get a W, first of all. But I think the most important thing is the contents of our defense, how we play. We have to play in the confinement of our defense. If we can do that and play really well, then, I'm okay with that. Not worrying about the sacks. That's just a number to me. Is winning games have a chance to affect the quarterback throwing the ball. There's a 3-step, 5-step, 7-step. How can we affect it? Is that get our hands matching the hands that we're knocking them down? Those are things that change the game also.
So were you more or less satisfied with the sack total in the context of last year's defense, or were there things that
you're never satisfied, right? You never get satisfied where you're at. You got to continue.
Dude's really digging on the sacks. He wants Larry to say, no, I'm not satisfied with the sacks and we want more sacks. Larry won't give it to him. And I'm sure Larry wants more sacks, even though it is just a number. He wants to affect the passer. And if they can do that, that's all they need to do. They're going to get their sacks because that secondary is so excellent. Tyleik had something to say about that too.
Seth definitely knows what he's doing. He has a high IQ, strong, like he's stout. He's not like a pushover or nothing like that. He's a great player. I'm glad we got him.
How do you kind of see him lead that line as a veteran, all the experience he has?
Like I said, he knows what's going on. He tells other people what's going on. If you don't know the play, ask him. He's kind of that guy. Like, he knows everything. He studies a lot, strong, fast.
I guess in that same regard, Tegra seems like he's very big for a guard. What's it like going against the guard?
It's a big dude, but, it's good work at the end of the day. I'm glad he's at guard. I think it's a better position for him, and he'll be a great guard in the future, like right now.
Last question.
So that was the wrong quote, but we'll go ahead and run with it. Tyleik talking about Seth McGloughlin, and I've said this, that I've heard this for a while now. The guys asked Seth McGloughlin, the new guy, for the plays. He said, you got a question? Yes, Seth McGloughlin. An excellent advantage to have a center who is the smart one of the offensive line, the guy who's remembering everything, the guy who has to make the calls. That's fantastic. And Tegra, he thinks that he's going to be an excellent guard, and that's the better position for him. Regarding sacks, he also said people know when they play Ohio State, they know you got to get the ball out fast, and it prevents us from getting sacks. And he's right. We also got a nice quote from Cody talking about his Blocko reward, the Bill Willis Blocko award.
It never really feels real. Me personally, I'm not the type of guy who likes to really be in the limelight and be like the center of attention. So even adjusting to that was kind of strange for me. But it was really emotional for me. I mean, ever since I was like a child, even being a captain in college football is like, you see those guys walk out on TV in biggest games, and you're like, I want to be there when I'm older. For me, it was really emotional. I was so thankful for it. It never really feels real.
He has slowly become, I think, my favorite player on the team. And I just, the other day when I was looking back, kind of chopping up when he won the Blocko, I'm like, I'm going to do a little Cody Simon short. And I just kind of searched through and I realized that, man, I have Cody Simon probably more than anybody else, any one player. Like, there was so much stuff on Cody Simon, who didn't really do much last year, hasn't done a whole lot in his career as far as on-field production. I mean, he was the third linebacker last year, played 370 snaps. But going from that to like, I think this guy's just amazing. You listen to him talk, he's shy. Like, he's kind of a shy guy. He's not like this loud, boisterous leader type. He's the opposite type. The guy who will check you. And CJ Hicks said, yeah, he'll definitely tell me when I'm doing something wrong. But he doesn't want that. You know what I mean? He's just a shy dude, and he definitely is honored, ready to step up. I just love his goods. I love what he's got. I love what he brings to the team. I think having a guy like that is so vital to a defense. And I think it's those little things that can put you over the top, from being really, really good to great. And Caleb Downs says he thinks they can be one of the best defenses ever.
Definitely, we can be one of the most elite defenses to ever play in this game. So,
and I think they can be too. We talked last week about Caleb Downs' new NIL app, where student athletes can connect with NIL deals all in one place. It's kind of like a NIL hub for student athletes. And today it was announced that he got a new deal for 1 year with Roback Clothing Company, and On3 valued it at $50,000 for a year. So good for Caleb. This was the quarter zip that was on the picture. Now, I wanted it. I don't know if you guys like the Roback stuff. It is kind of played out, like a lot of people are wearing it, and I don't generally like to do that, but the most comfortable polos, and I wear a lot of polo shirts because I'm 45. I've got like 7 of those things, and some of those quarter zips, and they're awesome. It's like stretchy and just smooth. It's really good. Thin too. I like thin stuff. But they don't have this particular one for sale. So I'm really irritated. I wanted that quarter zip. They don't have it. Disappointed, Caleb. Please do something about that. Adam Guthrie, new picture, and his film came out from the most recent scrimmage that they just had. Wow. He looks strong. He looks fast. He looks good. The Harrison twins. So on the right is Aiden Harrison. On the left is Andrew Harrison. They are twins out of Weddington High School. Weddington High School, the school that we are getting Trajan Odom out of. And those two are cousins with Thomas Davis Jr. Thomas Davis, linebacker for the Panthers. And Thomas Davis Jr. is their cousin. So the 4 of those guys are on one defense. Aiden Harris is a top 100 defensive end, 6'4", 240. Andrew Harris is 6'2", 220. He's a top 300 player. Well, the Buckeyes, it's now known, are in the lead for Aiden Harris, the top 100 kid. They really like Larry Johnson. That's great news. And the Buckeyes got a crystal ball today for another North Carolina player, another Larry Johnson player, Xavion Griffin-Haynes, who's also about a top 150 guy, 6'6", verified, 220, came to camp at Ohio State, and he seems to be interested in making a commitment soon. These are all 2026ers. But he seems to be interested in making a commitment soon. It was reported that there are some people in his family or in his circle that are trying to get him to wait, but it sounds like he really wants to pull the trigger, and we might see some action on that relatively quickly. On3 also put out their top 100 players for 2027. And no, we're not getting into 2027, but I just want to show you that there are 3 Ohio players that made it on the list. So let's go over them. D'Angelo White, who the Buckeyes have offered. He's a tight end out of Illangelo St. Joe's. He came to camp and absolutely wowed them. And he's a teammate of Bo Jackson's up there. Antoine Higgins out of Cincinnati. He's an edge, 6'3", 202, so still got a lot of growing to do. And the most exciting, man, maybe not. Maybe D'Angelo is more exciting, but Brayton Feaster, this kid's out of Hoban. He's ridiculous. He's entering in his sophomore year. That's him last year at 14 as a freshman in high school. Crazy good wrestler, just an absolute freak. 6'3", 220, total freak, fast. He's definitely, I think he's going to be a 5-star, and he's already a high 4-star on every service, and he's going to be something. He's really going to be something. Cannot wait to watch what that kid does. So let's get to some comments. Oh, I want to, so listen, not rooting for Fleming. The other day, I was talking about Julian Fleming, and I said, I'll be rooting for Julian Fleming. And generally, I root for all guys who transfer out of Ohio State, unless it's someone like Jamison Williams, who goes down and kind of talks crap about Ohio State. Or, there have been some instances where it might be over money, and I don't really like that. But for the most part, we see guys usually kind of drop down a level because they can't play at Ohio State, and it's best for both the team and the player. In that case, I usually root for him. In Julian Fleming's case, he wasn't going to play. He can go there and be their, one of their number 1 guys, though I don't know if that's working out like that for him, like he thought. But either way, he's a guy who was very well liked by everybody in the program. And I'm sure he would have much rather stayed. Could he have, had a shot? He's just looking for a shot to make it to the NFL. He wasn't going to see the field this year. So he leaves. I said I was going to root for him, and I was kind of surprised at maybe the number of people who didn't really feel the same way. So I kind of wanted to know, because I figured most people felt the same way I did. So I did a poll, and I just want to know, like, what percentage are like hard nose? Like, you don't root for a Buckeye that transfers ever because you've basically turned your back on the program. So I did a poll recently, this afternoon, 300 votes, and we got 80% who are like me. And yes, they do root usually, for certain, unless it's a different circumstance, like Jamison Williams. 80% root for the guys. 20% are hardline no's. And I got no problem if that's your stance. Like, I just wanted to know what percentage does not. Ron Frederick says the Oregon On3 guy is super, super cocky, so much so that I have to shut him off. Chat with him and tell us what you think, please. So in that little clip I have in the outro, he's talking about one of the guys from Scoop Duck, and it's certainly not Max Torres, who is incredibly humble, professional. He's an Oregon fan, but he acts like, down the middle. The other guy, Justin Hopkins, is a Duck fan, and he wears it on his sleeve. I don't know if he intends to, but he certainly does. But it's my understanding that he is the founder of that site, Scoop Duck. And On3 kind of scooped up these sites for each team. So like Letterman Row at Ohio State, Scoop Duck, scooped them all up and then put them under their umbrella, which would essentially be like if On3 was picking up a podcast in each market to give like a straightforward podcast, and they picked up Juckonbucks and were like, all right, Juck, be neutral. And as much as I try to be neutral, and I do try sometimes, I'm always going to be slanted towards Ohio State. So Justin Hopkins certainly slanted towards Oregon when he talks about recruiting. You can't get past it. And, it is what it is. But Max Torres, I don't know Justin. I know Max Torres, and I've had Max on the show here before. Max is fantastic. So if Hopkins annoys you, just follow Max, and I'm sure the Duck fans could weigh in on that. By the way, we got a couple of people, new listeners, I assume, who don't know this story. So when I say Duckeyes, I'm not talking about Oregon fans. The Juckonbucks fans started calling themselves Juckeyes. And then a Duck fan said to me, I'm a Juckeye. And I said, you cannot be a Juckeye. You're a Duck fan. Well, you're a Duckeye. And that's where that came from. So the Duckeye reference is to the Duck fans who watch this show, not all Oregon fans, just the ones here. And the ones here are respectful and nice and respect Ohio State, or else they're not allowed here. Just like USC was not allowed here before, except for that one USC fan, Carlos 187 from the other day, a classy individual. Chuck Klosterman says Wisconsin versus Bama game is so underrated. My boldest prediction this year, Wisconsin wins, and oh, would I like to see that. Listen, it's possible. I mean, Kalen DeBoer is coming in very new, 3 games in, up into Wisconsin. Hey, if it's a night game, it could be pretty wild environment regardless. But if it's a night game, really wild. And, we've seen how it goes up there. Sometimes it's just wonky. Wonky things happen in Wisconsin. Leviticus James says, Juck is a great addition to the Army. Leviticus, thank you so much, my friend. He was asked, does he put himself amongst the top 5 amongst Ohio State wide receivers?
I think I'm the best.
And then he laid out the litany of reasons why. It is so difficult to compare players from different eras. I'm a Chris Carter guy. Wide receivers today are trained like little robots from the time they're 12. Do you know what Ohio high school football was like in the 1980s? Chris Carter rolled out of an Ohio high school football program into Ohio State and was doing what we see wide receivers do today in the 80s. All that stuff they're doing now, he's the unicorn. He's the originator of all that, man. You could pluck him out of the 1980s, drop him into today's game, and he'd still be one of the best. There are so few players that you can say that about. Nobody will ever touch Chris Carter because he was so different for his era. Not to mention, Chris Carter was a dog, dude. All right, so I put that out the other day, and I got a whole lot of responses. This is from Cunnilingus69, and he said, I also would rank Chris Carter as the best. Marv would barely make my top 10. He loses points because he don't know how to block, tips the defense if it's run or pass, and owns 0 gold pants. Marv addressed the gold pants in there, and he said that's kind of a team award. But, we all saw that interception and his lack of effort last year to stop that return of that interception. It was pretty soft. A lot of people were irritated with that one. I can't fight back. There's no defense of that. That's for sure. He also definitely lacked in blocking, but outside the top 5, I have a hard time with that one, man. I mean, I've not sat down and ranked them, but here's the thing. I think we all are a little more apt to put the guys where we were kind of in our formative years, the ones that were performing then, a little bit higher than other people. Like, so for instance, I lean towards David Boston, Terry Glenn, Joey Galloway more than I do the newer age crew, just because those are the guys when I was younger that were a little older than me and looked up to them a lot. So they always feel larger than life to me. I don't know, if I would feel that. I think if I was younger now, I would feel that way about this latest crop of crazy good wide receivers. And also when we look at their skills, the newer ones, they have the benefit, like I was saying in there, of the training, the specific training for wide receivers that these guys have gone through, these new age wide receivers, really starts at a young age. It's so precise. There's so much to it. Back then, not so much. I mean, we talk about high school football in Ohio. That day and age, there's a lot of schools that threw 5 passes a game, if that, and especially Chris Carter's era. So a little more difficult to judge those guys, compare them to this era. And that's why I really have a hard time with doing ranks like top 10. But to say Marv outside of the top 5, I don't know. I'd have to sit down and do my top 10. It sounds on the surface like a pretty wild claim, though, buddy. I don't know if you're not just hating on him for the lack of blocking. User says, who's recruited better O-line outside of the South this cycle than Ohio State? Notre Dame. Not close. Here's the thing. We don't use the rest of the North as the barometer for Ohio State recruiting at any position, why are we going to use it at offensive line? There's nobody in the North that recruits close to us except for Notre Dame. And, there's still a pretty big gap usually between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Who else in the North recruits like Ohio State? Oregon does just recently, but that's not the criteria. There's nobody else in the North that also gets top 3 classes or sits in number 1 right now where we are. So grading the offensive line class by the standard of Northern football is a little bit silly, right? Like, you're kind of changing the goalposts when you do that, aren't you? But let's talk about Ohio State and Notre Dame's offensive line class. So for the Bucks, you got Jake Cook, a composite 3-star, 427th in the country, 6'5", 295 pounds, an interior guy. You got Carter Lowe, your tackle, at 6'5", 290, top 50 in the country, borderline 5-star, super stud. For Notre Dame, you've got Matty Augustine, 6'7", 290, composite 4-star, 386 in the country. You've got Owen Strebrig, 6'8", 295, composite 4-star, top 200 in the country. And then you've got the super stud, the class stealer, Will Black, 6'7", 295, composite 4-star, top 62 composite in the country, and an absolute super freak. Everybody wanted that guy. That guy is big time. If you're asking which class would you prefer, you'd prefer Notre Dame's 10 times out of 10 at this current point in time. Those are 3 true tackles, 2 of them very highly rated, 1 of them borderline 5-star. It's not even a question. Notre Dame's class is better. But again, that's not the standard. All right, guys, that's my show today. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, but most importantly, enjoy your day. Also, I'll be at the Menace to Sports live show on Friday in Dublin, Ohio at Yogi's on Hard Road. I'm going to go there, have a couple Diet Pepsis, talk some Buckeye football. If you see me, come right over. Let's talk. I'm there to see you. Can't wait. And I will talk to you guys then. Juckonbucks out.